2 weeks before the murder, deputies spotted a suspicious car and approached the driver. Juan Razo admitted not having a driver's license and not being a U.S. citizen. Deputies then contacted the Border Patrol, who advised them not to detain Razo, apparently because he wasn't a violent felon. Though Customs and Border Protection won't comment until they, quote, look into the facts of the case to find out exactly what happened. During his bail hearing, Razo told the judge he didn't have a driver's license, a green card, or birth certificate. His fingerprint also was not in the database. Listen to the baffled judge.
I have somebody that we don't even know who he is, why he's in this country, why he's here illegally, and why he allegedly committed a murder.
Razo has a preliminary hearing next week. He could be looking at life in prison. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Joining me now, Ann Coulter, author of Adios, America, and Alan Colmes, host of The Alan Colmes Show. So, I mean, I realize that one case doesn't speak for all the illegal immigrants in this country, but here we go again. You could feel the judge's outrage there. And he's sick and tired of these cases, as are the American people, Ann.
Yes, and we're finally hearing about more of them. I mean, this has been going on all the time. The last few days, I've been tweeting out stories where, you have to get to the bottom of the story of another murder, another child rape. Wouldn't it be great if we had a wall on the border? And by the way, he didn't apparently have enough of a record. He'd be on his way to a path to legalization if the House had taken up Rubio's bill.
This is the thing that, nonviolent apparently passed. That he was, according to Trace's report, not detained because there was no history. And this is the Obama department's, their priorities that they've set, that they only go after the so-called violent illegal immigrants. And yet, how do you determine who's about to be a violent criminal?
You can't say who's about to be a violent criminal, but there is more violent behavior among those who are not here undocumented than there are among undocumented immigrants.
That's not true. When you have no idea.
It's absolutely true.
Ridiculous.
All the studies have been done show there is much more violence among white, black, Hispanic,
That's absolutely
legal
false. It's
residents of the United States than there are among those who are here illegal.
They don't compare it to Americans. They compare it to convicted Americans.
No, those are the stats. Cato Institute's done it.
No,
all
they
kinds
didn't.
of
They
studies have
cited
been
the
done.
same study.
Well, we'll cite study versus study.
But Alan, let me ask you this. High-profile case after high-profile case, although the media chooses not to highlight this. I mean, this one hasn't been everywhere. Sissa the Lion, who we'll get to, too, later. We're also going to cover that, which is disturbing. That gets a lot of coverage. This one, not so much. But to the extent it does it undermine the argument we are hearing from people who support sanctuary cities, from people who want to allow a path to citizenship? They're emotionally devastating stories, and they're devastating to the families and to anybody who hears about it. They're horrific tragedies. But policy should not be made based on stories that are often used to make a political point, which is what's being done here by those who are running for president, who want to act as anti-immigrant as they possibly can for political purposes. Policy should not be made based on these individual yet horrific, tragic events.
Okay, well, for one thing, that is all we do all the time. I mean, we had to listen for a year about a rape that never happened by the Duke lacrosse team. We had
Policy
months
wasn't made
on
based
still
on
talking the UVA gang rape that never happened. We have the Ferguson hands up, don't shoot that never happened. Now we have a real war on women because all these peasant cultures are being dumped on the country to give the Democrats more votes and
What do you mean by peasant
businesses
cultures?
cheap
Peasant
labor.
culture?
Yes, peasant cultures, the kind of cultures where child rape is common, and that is what we're getting, and that's what we're seeing.
You want to put down an entire culture?
And to say, oh, we shouldn't develop policy on this. This is a government policy, Alan. Who comes into the country, whether or not we have a fence? The American people have been demanding a fence for 30 years. Congress has passed 3 fence bills already, but somehow the fence doesn't get built, and Republican after Republican keeps thinking, I'm going to be the one who's going to get amnesty.
And policy on prosecution priorities, which has been a big deal under the Obama administration. We're only going to go after the violent felons, only the really violent felons.
Right.
Well, this guy wasn't a violent felon until he was.
You can't know in advance every fraud that's going to be committed. You can't know
we only want to let in people who won't become
because
felons.
We're not letting in people, for the most part, who are committing these kinds of crimes.
We're not letting them in. They're coming in, and this is nonsense. They are.
We've had more deportations under both Bush and
we need an after the segment. We need an after the
study. Why don't you just count the ones in prison?
Can anybody think of a good acronym for that? What could we call the after the segment? Oh wait, no.
No.
Great to see you both.